Oh, Blanche, I'm so sorry.
But they've decided to try and work things out, so they're going to Hawaii for a second honeymoon.
Well, sounds like they're trying to work it out. Why are you upset?
Don't you listen, she has cellulite.
When the Golden Girls appeared on television in the middle of the 1980s, it became much more than just another comedy show. It turned into something that people everywhere talked about and loved. Viewers of all ages watched Dorothy, Blanche, Rose, and Sophia make them laugh with their clever jokes and wonderful personalities. The show broke down barriers, talked about subjects that were often avoided, and gave fans some of the most memorable TV moments of that time period. However, not every scene was welcomed in the same way by everyone. One particular scene caused controversy and was thought to be too shocking for its time. The Golden Girls first appeared on NBC in September 1985, and nobody could have guessed how popular it would become. The show continued for 7 successful seasons until May 1992, with 180 half-hour episodes in total. Every week, viewers tuned in to watch 4 older women living together in a house in Miami, Florida. The cast was truly unforgettable, featuring B. Arthur as Dorothy Zbornak, Betty White as Rose Nyland, Rue McClanahan as Blanche Devereaux, and Estelle Getty as Sophia Petrillo. Together, these 4 actresses made television history. The sitcom was created by Susan Harris and produced by Witt Thomas Harris Productions along with Touchstone Television. It quickly became a favorite among viewers everywhere. Paul Younger Witt, Tony Thomas, and Harris worked as the original executive producers, helping to create a show that felt fresh and bold for its time. What made the Golden Girls so special was how it mixed humor, friendship, and everyday chaos. These women were not just characters on a screen. They felt like real people that viewers might know in their own lives. The comedy was sharp and clever, the timing was perfect, and the chemistry between the 4 actresses could not be denied. Critics loved the show as much as regular viewers did. The Golden Girls won 2 Primetime Emmy Awards for Outstanding Comedy Series and 3 Golden Globe Awards for Best Television Series in the musical or comedy category. Even more impressive was that all 4 leading actresses each won an Emmy Award, something that only a few sitcoms have ever achieved. For 6 out of its 7 seasons, the show was ranked among the top 10 Nielsen ratings. Years after the show ended, it continued to receive praise from critics and new fans. In 2013, TV Guide put it at number 54 on their list of the 60 best series of all time. A year later, the Writers Guild of America placed it at number 69 on their list of the 101 best-written TV series of all time. As Terry Tang from the Associated Press noted, the series continued to attract new fans well into the 21st century and held up better than other sitcoms from the same era. But beyond all the awards and recognition, there was something deeper about the Golden Girls. The show presented older women living full, funny, and complicated lives at a time when television rarely focused on this group of people. While fans loved the jokes and the famous cheesecake moments around the kitchen table, there were many interesting things happening behind the camera that most people never knew about. At the heart of the Golden Girls was a simple but brilliant idea. 4 single women in their later years would share a house in Miami and face life's challenges together. Blanche owned the house, and her advertisement on a grocery store bulletin board brought Rose and Dorothy into the picture. Later, Dorothy's mother Sophia moved in after her retirement home burned down. From there, the stories developed with both humor and heart. Each episode often followed a similar pattern. One or more of the women would face some kind of problem, whether it was family drama, romantic trouble, or a difficult decision. Somehow, the solution always came back to conversations around the kitchen table. The kitchen became one of the most important parts of the show. Late-night talks, slices of cheesecake, and moments of complete honesty happened at the center of every episode. The women would share stories from their own lives that were usually funny, sometimes heartbreaking, and occasionally completely ridiculous. Rose's stories from her hometown of St. Olaf often made no sense at all, while Sophia's tales stretched the truth in hilarious ways. The show sometimes used flashbacks to past episodes or events that happened before the show began. These moments gave fans a deeper look into the characters' backgrounds and made the comedy even richer. The finale came in May 1992, when B. Arthur decided to leave the series. In the emotional final episode, Dorothy married Blanche's Uncle Lucas, played by Leslie Nielsen, and moved to Atlanta. Sophia was supposed to go with her, but ended up staying in Miami with Rose and Blanche. The finale drew a massive audience of 27.2 million viewers and became the 17th most watched television finale at that time. For fans, it felt like saying goodbye to close friends. While the show had ended on screen, the stories behind the scenes were just as interesting and dramatic as what viewers saw each week. When the Golden Girls first aired, nobody involved could have predicted the magic it would create. Executive producer Tony Thomas once said they were surprised when the show debuted at number 3 in the ratings, especially since it aired on Saturday night when many people were out doing other things. Many people forget that the cast of the Golden Girls was already older when the show began filming. Betty White, who played the sweet but quirky Rose, was 63 years old when the show started in 1985. B. Arthur, who played the sarcastic Dorothy, was also 63 when the show premiered. Estelle Getty, who played Dorothy's sharp-tongued mother Sophia, was 62 years old. Interestingly, Estelle was actually a year younger than B. Arthur, even though she played her mother on the show. Rue McClanahan, who played the bold and glamorous Blanche, was the youngest of the group at 51 years old. The show proved that older women could carry a hit television series, something that was quite rare at the time. What makes this even more interesting is that some of these women had worked together before the Golden Girls ever started. Betty White and Rue McClanahan had already appeared together on a show called Mama's Family, which was a spin-off from the Carol Burnett show. When that show went on hiatus, the two actresses stepped into their new roles on the Golden Girls. B. Arthur and Rue McClanahan also had a history together. Rue had played B's neighbor on the sitcom Maude. Rue herself convinced B to take the role of Dorothy on the Golden Girls. She later recalled calling B and saying she would be crazy to turn down the best script that would ever come across her desk. That conversation made all the difference, and television history was made. Even the show's famous theme song had a surprising story behind it. Everyone remembers the cheerful tune, "Thank You for Being a Friend," but that was not the original plan. The producers first wanted to use Bette Midler's song, "Friends," but it was too expensive to license. So instead they chose Andrew Gould's "Thank You for Being a Friend," which was recorded for the show by Cynthia Fee. The song became one of the most recognizable TV theme songs ever, but it almost never happened. While the music shaped the opening of each episode, personal quirks shaped life on the set. B. Arthur, for example, really disliked wearing shoes. She disliked them so much that she had it written into her contract that she could walk around barefoot on set. The only condition was that she had to promise not to sue the producers if she got hurt while not wearing shawl. As Rue McClanahan had her own unusual contract requirement. As Blanche, she wore glamorous and stylish outfits throughout the series. Rue loved those clothes so much that she arranged to keep them all once filming ended. Imagine having Blanche's entire wardrobe in your own closet after the show was over. But contracts were not the only source of drama behind the scenes. Betty White and B. Arthur had a famously tense relationship when the cameras were not rolling. Betty admitted years later that B was not particularly fond of her, and found her to be a pain sometimes. It was Betty's positive attitude that made B mad at times. Betty said that sometimes when she was happy, B would become furious. Their different styles often clashed during filming. B was focused on concentration and staying in character, while Betty was more lighthearted and chatty with everyone around. These differences showed up in unexpected ways when filming stopped for breaks. While B would stay concentrated and perhaps remain backstage in her position, Betty would often walk out to talk with the studio audience between takes. According to B. Arthur's son Matthew Sachs, Betty White often went out to smile and chat with the audience members, literally making friends with people who had come from all over the country to see the show being filmed. He said his mother did not appreciate these interruptions because she preferred staying focused on her work while Betty enjoyed connecting with the fans. It was not that Bea hated Betty as a person, but she did not like the interruptions to her concentration. She came from a theater background where discipline and focus were very important, while Betty was used to game shows and TV settings where chatting with audiences and being lighthearted were normal parts of the process. Despite these personality differences, the women were not enemies. Betty White often spoke about how much they actually cared for each other, even when they had moments of tension. She once explained that, "Can you consider how much time and togetherness is involved in making a television series? It would be impossible to do if the cast truly disliked each other." She said it would be bad enough in a dramatic show, but imagine trying to do comedy under those conditions. Betty emphasized that the love and respect between the cast members were what made the show work so well. She said she could not even imagine what the set would have been like if they did not all support and respect one another. The fact that they also happened to genuinely care about each other was an added bonus that could not have been predicted when the show was first put together. Rue McClanahan agreed with this sentiment. In her memoir, she shared that what mattered most to each of them individually, and all of them as a group, was that the chemistry worked perfectly. She said they were extremely funny together, and they achieved that as a team. That is what counted at the end of the day. So while there may have been whispers of disagreements and personality clashes, the truth was much more complex. Yes, Bea and Betty had their differences, and yes, tempers sometimes flared, but when the cameras rolled, they gave audiences something truly unforgettable. The comedy, the chemistry, and the closeness came through in every single scene. Estelle Getty, who played Sophia, is remembered for carrying a distinctive straw purse that became almost like another character on the show. What many people do not know is that Estelle actually found that purse herself. Before her audition, she went shopping in Los Angeles' Fairfax district and picked up the purse to use as a prop. That small choice helped define Sophia's look for the entire series. The show's popularity reached far beyond America. Even royalty became fans. The Queen Mother of England was such a devoted viewer that in 1988 she asked the cast and crew to perform a live version for the Royal Variety performance at the London Palladium. Betty White later remembered how exciting it was, saying the Queen was lovely, and they were told not to speak to her unless she spoke to them first. The royal connection did not stop there. Princess Diana also enjoyed the show. According to a book written by British comedy actress Cleo Rokos, Princess Diana once spent an afternoon with Freddie Mercury drinking champagne while watching reruns of The Golden Girls with the sound turned down, making up their own much naughtier dialogue. This proves that even the most glamorous and famous people loved the humor of these Miami roommates. The show brought in many guest stars over its 7 seasons, some of which were legendary and others quite surprising. Bob Hope appeared as himself in an episode called You Gotta Have Hope, making it one of the standout guest appearances of the entire series. In 1987, a young Mario Lopez appeared on the show years before he became famous as A.C. Slater on Saved by the Bell. He played an undocumented student named Mario, who wrote a prize-winning essay about what it means to be an American. Around the same time, George Clooney also made an appearance playing a police officer investigating the girls' neighbors in an episode called To Catch a Neighbor. Clooney's agent reportedly requested this role just so the actor could maintain his medical insurance benefits. Perhaps most surprisingly, Quentin Tarantino appeared as an Elvis impersonator in Sophia's Wedding in 1988. His role seemed small at the time, but Tarantino himself later admitted it helped him survive financially during difficult times. On The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, he explained that because it became a 2-part Golden Girls episode, He got paid residuals for both parts. The episode was so popular that it was included on a Best of the Golden Girls collection, and he received residuals every time that aired as well, Tar. Antino said he was initially paid around $650 for the episode, but by the time all the residuals were finished 3 years later, he had made about $3,000 total. That money helped keep him going during pre-production while he was trying to get his movie Reservoir Dogs made. Who would have guessed that the road to becoming one of Hollywood's biggest directors passed through Blanche's living room? Cheesecake became almost a symbol of the Golden Girls. The women were frequently seen around the kitchen table solving problems over a slice of this dessert. Over the 7 seasons, more than 100 cheesecakes were eaten on screen during filming. Fans loved this detail, but interestingly, not everyone on the cast did. B. Arthur reportedly disliked cheesecake in real life, even though her character Dorothy ate plenty of it throughout the series. The show also stood out for its courage in addressing topics that other sitcoms avoided. During a time when most television programs stayed away from LGBTQ themes, the Golden Girls featured gay and lesbian characters regularly. Blanche's brother Clayton appeared as a gay character. Dorothy had a lesbian college friend named Jean, and even the cook from the pilot episode named Coco was gay. This made the show stand out during the late 1980s and early 1990s, when such representation was very rare. However, not every joke was welcome on the set. Estelle Getty drew clear lines about what she would and would not say. In interviews, she explained that she would not perform humor that made fun of people for being overweight, bald, cross-eyed, or gay. She also refused to deliver any lines that used domestic violence as a source of comedy. Estelle's strong choices showed that the cast had some power over the material and genuinely respected their audience. When most people think of the Golden Girls today, they picture 4 older women in Miami chalet, ring laughs, wisdom, and plenty of cheesecake around their kitchen table. The show is often seen as timeless, something families can watch together during holidays or when someone is homesick. But not every episode has aged perfectly over the decades. Some jokes that worked well in the 1980s feel quite different to modern audiences. One episode in particular became known as the most controversial of the entire series. It was originally supposed to be bold and progressive, showing an interracial couple on network television at a time when this was still uncommon. But years later, this same episode ended up being temporarily banned from streaming services, which surprised and even angered many longtime fans. The episode was called Mixed Blessings and first aired in March 1988 during the show's 3rd season. In the story, Dorothy's son Michael brings home his fiancée Lorraine, a 44-year-old black woman who is also pregnant. Michael is only 23 years old. Both families are caught completely off guard by this news. Dorothy is concerned about the significant age difference between the couple, while Lorraine's mother is worried about the racial aspects of the relationship. The story already contained plenty of tension and difficult conversations, but what really caused headlines decades later was a single moment that some people thought looked like blackface. In one early scene, Blanche and Rose walk into the room wearing mud masks as part of a beauty treatment day. Lorraine's mother briefly mistakes them for Michael's parents, and for a split second thinks they might be wearing blackface makeup. The misunderstanding is quickly cleared up in the scene, but Rose tries to make light of the awkward moment with a comment about how uncomfortable white people look when they appear on the TV show Soul Train. At the time the episode aired, this scene was played purely as comedy, but blackface has an extremely painful history in America. In the 19th century, white performers used blackface to mock enslaved people by painting their faces with shoe polish and creating cruel stereotypes. It was a deeply hurtful and demeaning practice that caused real harm. So when the streaming service Hulu pulled the episode in 2020, they said it was because of concerns about blackface imagery. The problem was that Blanche and Rose were not actually wearing blackface at all. They were simply wearing ordinary mud face masks as part of their beauty routine. Many fans felt that Hulu had gone too far with this decision. journalist Romani Gandhi even tweeted about it, saying that black viewers certainly knew their Golden Girls and that Dorothy, Rose, Sophia, and Blanche were actually the least problematic white women in all of television, which was quite impressive considering the show was on the air in the mid-1980s. This response showed how many fans believed the ban was unfair, especially since the episode was actually trying to tackle the sensitive subject of interracial marriage, which was still a difficult topic for television to address at that time. But the mud mask scene was not the only part of the episode that made people uncomfortable when viewed through modern eyes. Later in the story, both families gather in the kitchen to talk things over. Dorothy, Sophia, Blanche, Rose, Lorraine's mother Greta, and her sisters Trudy and Libby all sit down with coffee and cheesecake for what becomes a very frank discussion. But the conversation takes a shocking turn when Sophia suddenly asks Greta if it is true what people say about black men's sexual abilities. Blanche immediately blurts out yes, and then tries to backtrack, saying she was only curious to know as well. Dorothy quickly scolds both of them, pointing out that this kind of talk relies on harmful stereotypes. But Trudy does not hold back in her response, saying they can call it whatever they want, but she is just grateful that the stereotype happens to be true. In 1988, this kind of conversation on primetime television was considered very daring. The writers wanted to highlight the kinds of awkward racial discussions that many families avoided having. But when viewed today, the scene feels very different. What was once seen as edgy comedy now comes across as sexual fetishization. It demonstrates how stereotypes, even the so-called positive ones, can still be harmful to real people. Modern audiences understand that these kinds of jokes tend to divide people rather than bring them together in meaningful ways. Even so, it is important to remember that the Golden Girls was trying to raise these difficult topics at a time when very few television shows were willing to address them at all. In its own way, the episode was attempting to encourage honest conversation about race relations. Eventually, Michael and Lorraine decide to elope rather than deal with all the family drama. Their families may not see eye to eye on the relationship, but the young couple knows they want to be together. Dorothy and Greta, as mothers who will soon be grandmothers to the same child, find some common ground. They agree to pretend to be happy about the marriage for the sake of the baby. It was a realistic ending that showed how family members often have to compromise, even when they strongly disagree with each other. But not all of the dialogue in the episode sat well with audiences, even at the time. In one particularly uncomfortable moment, Rose asks Dorothy if she can ask what she calls a dumb question. Dorothy replies with her usual dry humor that Rose is better at asking dumb questions than anyone she knows. Rose then asks what color black people's dandruff is, to which Dorothy answers that black people do not get dandruff because God decided they had been through enough hardship already. The line was intended as a joke, but it felt awkward and inappropriate to many viewers both then and now. The episode itself was not trying to be racially insensitive on purpose. In fact, it was genuinely attempting to confront stereotypes and open up conversations about race and relationships that were often avoided on television. But years later, television networks felt nervous about the content and decided to pull it from regular rotation. Hulu removed Mixed Blessings in 2020, during a period when many companies were reconsidering their content in light of increased awareness about racial issues. However, they brought the episode back in 2023 without making any public comments about the decision. The episode is still available in its complete form on DVD sets of the show. To many people, this episode remains a reminder of how comedy ages differently over time and how cultural standards change. For others, it demonstrates how the Golden Girls was willing to explore difficult topics that no other mainstream television show wanted to address. Whether fans see it as going too far or as brave television programming, it is clear that this episode will always be remembered as the most controversial one in the entire series. The story of Mixed Blessings raises important questions about how we should view older television shows today. Should classic programs like The Golden Girls be judged by current standards, or should we view them within the context of the time period when they were made? Different people have different opinions on this question, but most agree that The Golden Girls was generally ahead of its time in addressing social issues that other shows ignored completely. Looking back at The Golden Girls today, it remains a remarkable achievement in television history. The show successfully combined genuine humor with meaningful discussions about aging, friendship, family relationships, and social issues. While not every joke has aged perfectly, the core values of the show, love, respect, honesty, and the importance of chosen family, remain as relevant today as they were in the 1980s. The four women who brought these characters to life created something truly special that continues to find new audiences decades after it first aired. Their willingness to tackle difficult subjects, combined with impeccable comedic timing and genuine chemistry, made The Golden Girls a show that will likely be remembered and discussed for many years to come.